now then. So we've got the patch notes for 10.5, and I've had a quick skim through just before I recorded this, and a couple of changes I'm happy with, some interesting stuff, but we'll go through it together, give you my thoughts, see what it sort of holds for the next season. So first thing is like kind of a minor thing. They've added a new keyword, which is timer, and basically this is just the same as like nothing's functionally changing. It's just cards that have counters to things like Siri Dash, Megascopes, all that kind of thing. Instead of it having like counters, it now has timer, and that's just a new word for it. Nothing's changed on that side. There's all stuff regarding journeys. Read this at your leisure if you want to pause right now. I won't go through all this. We all care about the cards. That's all we care about. So, a lot of changes here. And you're going to see a lot of these tooltip adjusted to include the new timer keyword. So every card that has counters is going to be updated to say this. We don't need to talk about those. So, Engith Sword, nice little change. Now it's a special, has Echo, damage a unit by 5, spawn and play a base copy and give it doomed, and the Deathblow banish the unit and store it, which seems like super weird wording. But my understanding of this is the first play of it deals 5, and the second play is it will play the card that was like stored from the first play. I can't exactly tell whether this is basically a coup de grace that needs Deathblow or not. The wording seems really weird to me, so I don't want to talk about this until I'm certain. So assuming that it's an Echo card that's deal 5, and if it kills the unit, it lets you spawn a base copy of it. That's decent. I think that's alright. I don't know how amazing that is exactly. I think it's okay because it's spawned, so it's not like a coup de grace. You couldn't do this onto Yokeem, for example, and just do it again. It's just a spawn, so yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see with this one. Puzzle Box has had its tooltip adjusted to be a bit more intuitive, so nothing's actually changed. Tooltip adjusted to include new timer. Ring of Favour. So the provision cost has been bumped up by 1, and the base boost, so what it starts at 3 now. I don't think this is enough. Like, this card was busted at 8 provisions. I think it's still incredibly strong, leaning towards busted at 9. And the point of Ring of Favour is like it's a huge tempo swing. So functionally, what this change in base boost does is changes it from it playing for 20 points, it plays for 19 now, which is just not enough. It's just not enough of a change. So I don't expect this season to be anything different. I think Ring of Favour is probably still going to be an auto-include. Unfortunately, because this is arguably the card I wanted changing the most, because it's such an auto-include for like 99% of decks, it's kind of ridiculous. So that's a bit of a shame. Tooltip adjusted, new timer, blah blah blah. Sahil is a weird one. So now it's like 12 provisions, so pretty expensive. And you damage unit by 1, and Deathblow, you play a bronze card from your hand, move Sahil back to your hand. And initiative, so you can't have used any orders before this. So they changed initiative a couple of patches ago now, so you can like tutor out initiative cards. It's just if you used orders and things like that, it just has to be like your first card. It will also increase the damage by 1. Now, the problem I have with this is a Deathblow of 1 damage has the same problem that Revenants kind of have, where setting things up at 1 health is awkward. I mean, sure, if you can get this up to like 3 or 4, then job's good, which may be feasible for some decks, but the payoff doesn't seem that amazing, really. It's kind of like floating value. So instead of playing like your bronze card that plays for, say, let's say it plays for 8, you're making it play for 9, your next one's playing for 10. You know, it's going to build up some value over the game for sure, but at 12 provisions, that's super expensive, and you're not getting huge value unless you're getting that death blow. Because if you're not, then it's just playing for points, which can make it super cluunky. And like I say, if you get this up to a death blow, dealing damage of like 5, 6, whatever, then all good, but it's not. And also because it's only bronze cards, this means that certainly in like a round 3, when you've got all the payoff for, you know, getting the points up on this, how much damage it's dealing, you can't use it to play any of the golds that you would hopefully have in your hand. So it seems a little funky. I would lean towards this not being very good, to be honest. Struggle board, tooltips adjusted, blah blah blah. Summoning Circle, basically a new card now. So you choose a card from your deck, set the counter the same as its provision cost, and you remove a counter for each adjacent unit. When it reaches 0, you summon the chosen unit from your deck to the row and destroy the artifact. Now this is kind of nuts. Because there's quite a few like niche uses for this. So obviously first there's just a standard thing of like being able to summon a unit from your deck is naturally pretty good. Obviously more expensive cards are going to take longer. Because artifacts aren't really removed, like the only artifact removal people use is Karatha Heatwave, and you're probably not going to Heatwave this because it just doesn't make sense to. But despite this already looking like, you know, like a decent kind of tutor card, maybe a little overcosted for how much it takes just for the tutor to work and the fact that it's only a summon. But if you can line this up really well, because of how counters work and everything, and it ticking down each turn, and because it has resilience, you can basically use this as like a pseudo tutor out of your deck for like next turn, in effect. Like big carryover. So if you have something in like, I don't know, say like Goliath, for example. Let's just say Goliath. And you can set it up so the counter is set at like 1 or 2, and it has resilience going into next turn. You can then have it tutored out your deck. So that's definitely interesting, especially as like a round 1 card to kind of defend against the bleed. Should the round be pulled short when they see this, it means you're going to get the value later on. So it seems interesting. How good it is, I think it's a little overcosted for what it's doing. I like the idea. I think it's very cool, but I think it's a little overcosted. Now, Teshin Mutna has finally become playable. Well, playable. I think it's, yeah, probably playable. On the weaker side, but good. So what it does now, it used to be deal 5 damage. If the unit had a shield, it destroys it instead. And this is just not good, because some decks just don't run a shield, and then you're paying, I can't remember how many provisions this is, like 6, something like that, 6 or 7. And you were just running like 5 points for that, and that's kind of bad. But repeat for each status it has gives you a fair bit of reach. All you need is like 1 status on a card for this to be dealing 10 damage. So this functionally is really good toll removal. And of course this completely wipes out Ciri Nova, that is, because Ciri Nova has shield and veil, so it's going to deal 5 damage, and then deal 5 damage, and then deal 5 damage, so it gets through the shield, deals 10 damage to the body, which kills the unit. So this kills Ciri Nova now. So depending on how the meta looks, if we're going to see a lot of Golden Necker decks, this might be decent. Onto things like defenders. This is going to deal 8 to a defender very nicely. And the fact that because it has repeat, it's not increased the damage. This works like how Giga Scorpion and Morkvarg do, where it's individual pings of damage. It's not like this just deals 10 damage, so a shield will soak it up. It's if this unit has a shield, it takes off the shield and then deals the damage, which is really nice. I think it's, I mean, I'd have to sit on this one and think on it a little bit, but I think it's playable. I think it's playable. if we're going to see a ton of golden neckers, like I say, this just deletes Sirenova, and you're pretty happy. And this is just 10 damage onto anything with a status. Seems decent, to be honest. Seems alright. I think things like vampires, of course, will really like this. You know, bleeding counts as a status. You just give something bleeding and then you just hit it for 10. And there's not a great deal that can survive 10 damage. Even some of like the biggest defenders. For example, this will just kill a Covenant of Steel. Just take a Covenant of Steel out. It will knock a Cave Troll down to 1. It will hit. It will kill Donomir. What are the defenders am I forgetting? It'll kill Biggis. Obviously, Azar's going to be a problem, but because he makes 2 bodies. So yeah, I think it's decent. I mean, this just kills pretty much every defender in the game, more or less. Seems good. Villains had the tooltip updated. Spear is now deal 6. Like, if it kills the unit, you deal the excess damage to another unit. It's kind of whatever. It's like a parasite, kind of. Like a marginally better Gigascorpion decoction, maybe. It's kind of so-so. Megascope, tooltip. Petrus filter. This has been overcosted for a long time. So give a unit Zeal, but it used to be boost it by 3 and give it Zeal. Now the deploy is the boost part, the order is the Zeal part. I still think it's overcosted garbage. I just don't think that's good. Thunderbolt, again, was another card that obviously you were paying for the uninteractivity of it all because you were just playing something that was gonna play for 6. But 8, which isn't great, but I can't think of, apart from like in a Glace deck, I don't think there's a reason why you'd play Thunderbolt. But now it's 5, boost unit by 3, the order is boost unit by 3. I mean, maybe some niche decks may use it, but still kind of bad. But that's a huge provision change. Obviously now it's not storing 2 charges, but still, huge drop. Now Scale Shield has basically been changed to a new card. It's basically the Northern Realms stratagem thing. I'll boost it by 4, give it shield, but this bit's kind of nice. When you play a unit, give it a shield, then banish itself from the graveyard. So, I mean, this in like a Rogner deck seems pretty good. Seems pretty cool. But beyond that, there's probably some niche use of this that I'm not thinking about. I guess it's really nice for setting up to defend your next card, and because it's a 4 provision card, already this part of it is like kind of on the low end for like 4 provision cards, but not the worst. But the ability to protect one of your units, if you kind of sequence this right, like saying elves, you could get a shield onto like Vanadane, for example. Seems okay. Okay, don't think this is busted, think it's okay. Maybe you play it a little bit. Arrakis Queen, so this used to be if you consumed a insectoid, it played Arrakis Nest. Now it kind of doesn't matter what you consume, and the order will just play Arrakis Nest, which I think leans it closer to the point of the card, because this card has exclusively been used as a cheese card to get multiple copies of a card. I don't think that's going to change. If anything, they buffed it, to be honest. It's just been buffed. It's just been straight up buffed. Because no one was using it to consume insectoids. There's no reason to. There's no insectoid that you really care that much about having duplicates of. Old Spear Tip, tooltip adjusted. So, Ritual Sacrifice. The saddest part about this is that this has basically killed Rat Clog decks. Which is sad, but oh well. It's a relic of the past, I guess. So now it's a unit that has power 5, plus 11, and Deathwish, summon 2 bronze Deathwish units from your deck. So this is kind of interesting, to be honest. Don't think it's that good, unfortunately. Because we've kind of seen with like Penitent, for example, which is like 7 provisions, and it summons a gold 7 provision card from your deck, which maybe a little bit less value than this, but you know, we're talking the same kind of ballpark of what it's doing in terms of like point payoff for triggering its Deathwish. And that's at like 7 provisions, and that's not even played in Deathwish decks. So an 11 provision one that's just summoning 2 bronze Deathwish units, not even playing them, so it's not like you can cheese this to trigger Horn in 1 turn or anything like that. I think this is just overcosted, to be honest. A little bit too expensive. But I can understand them out of caution with it going a bit higher. And I reckon they maybe drop this down to like, honestly, like 9 wouldn't be terrible, to be honest. Either 9 or 10. But we shall see. Hybrid wasn't played because it was just bad. It was boosted by 1 every time something was consumed. But now, I mean, you're always going to trigger this in a Deathwish deck, so you can just play it as a 8 for 4. Or you can use it as a consume, which is kind of flexible. If you don't need the consume, it just plays for 8, which is decent. So, you know, maybe this is a one-off. I think this is maybe a one-off in Deathwish decks. And Ram Warrior, which is when one of your own units dies during your turn, boosts itself by 1, I believe. And again, not really worth playing. You've got too much other stuff you want to be playing, to be honest, in a Deathwish deck to be running something like this. It would work, I just don't think it's worth it. So Ball, funnily enough, sorry, I kind of thought Ball has been needing a bit of a buff for a while now. It deserved the nerf back then, but there's been that much power creep that I think this is fair. Honestly, they could have dropped this to 13 and I'd be fine with it. Amnesty, again, is a card that's been a little bit power crept, so I think 5 makes sense. And now it's Northern Realms, and I kind of molded when I read this for a little bit. But, you know, nerf to AA completely makes sense. Fair enough. Card's kind of, I don't want to say broken. It's very, very strong. I don't think it's broken, though, but it's very good. Tooltip for that. And then this one. So, Traveling Priestess functionally hasn't changed. It's just now whenever this unit is inspired, it gets its zeal. So if it just comes down as its like standard 3 points, it's not going to have zeal. Going to have to wait a turn, which you could argue would kill the card if it didn't have a way to get zeal. But there is a big but on this one. It's that getting it inspired in your deck is not difficult at all, like in the slightest, because you are running things like you're running Istrid and the Witcher mentors. And I mean, I certainly found when I've tried this deck that it's really not difficult for them to have boost on. And I mean, if this maybe means you need to run, I don't know, run something like you could even run like a muta generator. All you need to run is like a muta generator. And you just play a 4 provision card and they've all got zeal again. You know, I really don't think this is a problem at all for the deck. I don't think this will slow it down one bit. You know, maybe you have to jig about a couple of cards, but by and large, this is not a nerf. Well, it is a nerf. It's not enough to stop the card. So Traveling Priestess is going nowhere this season, I don't think. Siege Master, power change from 2 to 1. Now it's got armor instead of 2 points. I think that's fair. At 2 power, it could be a little annoying because, you know, it's an extra 4 points. Now it's an extra 2 points, which I think is fair. I think this makes sense. Brewer basically now loses 1 armor for every turn that he does his effect, which is, I think that's fine. I don't think this functionally changes anything, in all honesty. You've got so many ways to put armor onto your dwarves, it's kind of ridiculous in a dwarf deck, so I don't think this will be a problem, but I think it's a fair change. Saskia, tooltip adjusted. Vanadin had a nerf. 1 extra power is kind of nice, but does mean he doesn't get muzzled anymore. You can't muzzle Vanadin anymore, at least as he is. You'd have to get like 1 damage ping onto him. So Whether that's worth a 2 provision nerf, I don't think so. So this is definitely a nerf, which I think is fair, because he's a very, very good card. Very, very good card. But, you know, you're still running this in Elves. There's no way you're dropping this card. You just find 2 provisions somewhere. Zoltan's Company on 2 Rowdy Dwarves on a row. So I read this, and I don't know if I'm being kind of stupid. But this is the same as it always was, right? Always, I think actually it was it spawned 3 Rowdy Dwarves and increased the number by the amount of Zoltans in your deck. So I think it's dropped down 1. If I remember right. I'm pretty sure it used to be spawn 3, but now it's spawn 2. Tooltip adjusted. Tooltip adjusted for Skellige, so nothing's changing for Skellige. Skellige is on the weaker side at the moment, so nothing's changing for Syndicate, just tooltip. And then game fixes, just random bugs and things like that. Biggest no longer has Zeal. I didn't even realize he had Zeal. Okay. So yeah, I think there's honestly with this patch has not filled me with hope. The 3 cards I wanted to see changes to were like Erendite, Traveling Priestess, and Ring of Favour. Erendite hasn't been touched. Traveling Priestess has been touched in such a way that I don't think it makes a change. And Ring of Favour functionally has had the most minor nerf I've ever seen. So, very positive note, I guess. Very positive note. I don't think this is going to change a great deal. I really don't think this patch changes a great deal, to be honest. There's going to be a few things people will experiment with, but I think by and large, the strongest decks about are still decks about. You know, Stockpile, for example, isn't going anywhere. Traveling Priestess isn't going anywhere. Dwarves seem perfectly fine. What else is there? Skellige hasn't been touched. Syndicate hasn't been touched. I think everything's just kind of looking same as it has been last season. And I don't know how I feel about that. But that's at least my interpretation. If you have a sort of different view on any of these cards, by all means drop it below. I love a good discussion about cards and things like that, and we can talk it through until the cows come home. And see what everybody thinks. But yeah, slight pessimist note to end on. But new patch, new season. We'll see what it brings. Hope you've enjoyed, and I will catch you.